Hi everyone, it's Ryan. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making some German chocolate cakes in a jar this time. So stick around and watch the recipe. Okay, so today I'm actually going to be making some 8-inch layers and some cupcakes. I think I'm going to have a little bit of extra batter from when I make the 8-inch layers. The 8-inch layers are just, how many times can I say 8-inch layers? The layers are going to go in the freezer, so I'm going to use those later on, but today I'm going to use the cupcakes for the cake in a jar. So I'm going to go ahead and get these sprayed. I'm doing this over my sink, and I'm spraying up the sides. I don't think you can see what I'm doing right now. I'm spraying up the sides and all over the bottom, and I took a piece of parchment and just outlined the bottom, and I'm just gonna put those in the bottom just so that the cake will come out of the pans a little easier. You don't have to. If you wanted to use some Baker's Joy, you could use that as well, since it has the flour already in it. And then I'm just going to go ahead and spray on top of the parchment as well. I'm going to set these off to the side. Okay, to start out with, I am going to get 3 eggs separated. So I'm going to put the whites in my stand mixer bowl. And I'm going to save the yolks for the rest of the cake. So this is going to be sort of another leavening agent for our cake. It's going to make the layers nice and fluffy. So we're going to whip these up to very stiff consistency. I'll wash my hands real quick. So I'm going to get the whisk attachment on here. Before I start that, I'm going to tell you the next thing I'm going to do. So in a microwave safe bowl, I'm going to put 3/4 of a cup of butter and a 4-ounce package of Baker's German sweet chocolate. So I'm gonna go ahead and start the butter in the microwave first, let it melt a little bit, and then I'm going to add the chocolate. Okay, so I stopped that just so you can hear me. So the butter is pretty well melted. I'm gonna go ahead and drop in my chocolate, trying not to splattering it all over, as usual, making a mess. So I'm gonna let that sit in there, and I'm gonna pop this back in the microwave. If you have a cover to put over top of it, I would recommend that so it doesn't splatter butter all over your microwave. All right, so I got the eggs whipped up. They are nice and stiff, and so I'm just going to set these off to the side. And then the chocolate is nice and melted, and I got a new bowl so you can actually see what's happening while I'm mixing. I'm not going to give a review on it yet because this is literally the first time I'm using it. I purchased it this morning. So in this bowl, we are going to put the chocolate. Be careful. Dumping it in there. The chocolate and butter mixture. And then we are going to put, sorry, I'm trying to look at my recipe, 1.5 cups of sugar. This is a 1/2 cup measure, so I need 3 of these. 2, 3. Okay, and I'm gonna mix this up just a little bit before I add the eggs because the chocolate is a little bit warm. So I'm just gonna mix this on low real quick. I'm just gonna add the egg yolks. Stop that, and then, oh, I forgot to get out the vanilla. Be right back. All right, so I need 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Okay. I'm gonna scrape the bowl as well real quick. Just to make sure there's no sugar on the bottom. Get everybody off the paddle. Okay. Mix that just real quick. All right, so now I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'll go ahead and add the salt. 1/4 teaspoon of salt. 1 teaspoon of baking soda. So this is a 1/4 teaspoon. So I need 4 of these. And I need, let's see, I need 2 cups of flour. And I also have 1 cup of buttermilk here. So I'm gonna go ahead and add 1 cup of the flour. Let that mix in just a little bit. And this is all-purpose flour. So I'm gonna go ahead and let that mix in just a little bit. Oh, throwing flour as usual. And while this is mixing, I'm gonna slowly pour in the buttermilk. I should have on an apron right now because this is making a mess. Okay. Get all of this in there. And as you can see, I'm wearing buttermilk right now. Oh my goodness, y'all. Always making a mess. So I'm gonna scrape off the sides again. Scrape off the bottom because there is quite a bit. You can probably see through this bowl that there's quite a bit on the bottom still. So you wanna make sure to get all of that incorporated before we add the rest of the flour. And once we add the rest of the flour, we're gonna let it mix for 2 to 3 minutes. Well, yes, we're gonna let it mix for 2 to 3 minutes, and then we will add the whipped egg whites. So 1 more cup of flour. Scrape the flour off the side. Whoa, I lost a lot on that one. Get it off the side, and then I'm gonna let it mix for 2 minutes. Okay, y'all, this is very hard to do in selfie mode, but I was just sitting down to edit, and realized that somehow the entire folding in of the egg whites process and me putting the batter in the cupcake pan and the 8-inch round pans somehow disappeared. So I basically used that yellow scoop, the number 20 scoop that I like to use. I used that to scoop each of the cupcakes, and then I evenly portioned out using the scoop into all of the 8-inch round cake pans. My goodness, words. I'm very irritated right now that all of that is lost. But so I did that. The oven was preheated to 325, and I believe I tell you later on in the video, but the cupcakes ended up taking a half an hour, and the cake took around 40 minutes to bake. So I'm so sorry that I missed all of that. Next time I will go back and look a lot more frequently to make sure that it's recording. Okay, I got everything cleaned up from making the cake layers. So those are in the oven still. I have about 4 minutes before I need to check on those again. So now we're gonna make the German chocolate, the custard filling. So to start out with, we need 2 egg yolks. And so I'm going to save the egg whites for something later on. And I'm just going to put the egg yolks into my batter bowl. And you want your eggs to be room temperature. They might be a little harder to separate without breaking, but those did just fine. I'll wash my hands real quick. And I grabbed a whisk. So I'm just gonna bust that yolk and mix it up a little bit. Now I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of evaporated milk. Let's see, make sure I'm looking at the right side. 3/4 of a cup, so that's about a half a can of evaporated milk. Go ahead and pour that in. And then I'm gonna give that just a little mix. Make sure that the egg yolks get incorporated nicely. Get all this other stuff out of my way. Now I'm gonna add 3/4 of a cup of sugar. It's a 1/4 cup measuring cup. So I need 3. Okay. I'm gonna give that a good mix. Make sure that the sugar gets incorporated nicely. Now, I'm gonna be making this in the microwave, just like I did my lemon filling for my very first video. Again, this is something I just learned that I could do because of watching another YouTuber. So, I'm just gonna put, this is 6 tablespoons of butter. So I'm gonna put this in there. Could cut it up smaller if you wanted to. I'm choosing not to. And I'm gonna put this in the microwave. I'm gonna start out for 2 minutes since this is a smaller recipe, because I'm only gonna do enough for just a few of those cakes in a jar. So this is about a half a recipe. So I'm just gonna start this out for 2 minutes in the microwave on high, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. All right, while that is in the microwave, I do have 3/4 of a cup of pecans here, and I did toast them. It adds just that little bit of an extra flavor if you go ahead and toast them. And then I also have 3.5 ounces of Angel Flake sweetened coconut. Coconut, that was the word I was just trying to say. So it is I call it shredded. Apparently that's not what it's actually called, but it looks like shredded cheese. So don't get the little tiny pieces. You want the kind that looks like shredded cheese. And we are going to add this at the very end along with some vanilla. And that is my cupcakes. I'm gonna check those. All right, my cupcakes were not quite done. They're taking longer than I thought they would. They've been in for about 15 minutes, so I set them for another 5. So what you're gonna do after this first 2 minutes is go ahead and give it a good stir. It is not very thick at all right now, so we're just getting everything nice and incorporated, and then I'm gonna go back in the microwave for another 2 minutes. Okay, so this is after the second 2 minutes. I will say keep an eye on it because this, as you can see, was boiling in there. So it is still not super thick. I do think I want to put it in for another at least minute just to see if it will thicken up a little bit more. You want to make sure that your filling is nice and thick before adding your pecans and coconut to it because you don't want it to be underset and runny. So I'm gonna put this back in for another minute. Okay, y'all, it is boiling like crazy. So I am going to say that this is done. It has thickened up. So now we need to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of vanilla. And like I said, this is a half batch from what I normally do. So the time in the microwave, you might want to decrease each time because you don't want it to bubble like crazy and get all over your microwave. So now I'm gonna switch from this whisk to a spatula, and we are going to mix in the coconut and the toasted pecans. And we're gonna save this. The reason I did the pecans in this pie plate, this is where we're going to pour the filling after we get it mixed up real good right here so that it will cool faster. So just make sure that you get everything nice and coated with that custard. Super simple, and like I said, this is a small batch. So now I am going to pour this into this pie shell or pie pan. Be careful because this batter bowl is hot. I'm gonna pour it in there, and then we are going to cover this with plastic wrap so that this way it's a thinner layer so it will cool faster in the refrigerator so that I can use it quicker. Make sure you get everything off of here. And then just take your plastic wrap and just lightly press it down onto the top of your filling. In my refrigerator, I already have one of these set in there so that this super hot glass is not sitting directly on my shelf in my refrigerator. So I'm gonna put this in there, let it cool off, and hopefully my cakes will be coming out of the oven here soon. All right, I just pulled the cupcakes out of the oven. You can tell over here, I tried these a little too soon, so the center sunk a little, but they should spring back whenever you push down on them. So these took about 30 minutes, which was quite a bit longer than I thought they would, but my temperature is down at 325. So they are nice and done, and they're still nice and soft. So I'm gonna get these in the fridge to cool, and the layers are still cooking. I'll show you those whenever those are done too. But like I said earlier, those are just gonna go in my freezer for later. All right, so my cake layers are done. They, like I said, they're a little shorter than I wanted them to be, but I just didn't have enough batter. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these. They've been out of the oven maybe 10 minutes or so. So I'm gonna go ahead and get them turned out onto some wax paper. And if you wanted to, you could run a knife or like a really thin offset spatula around them, as long as you don't have nonstick pans. If you have nonstick pans, that would scratch them all up. So with these are still pretty hot, but my hands are pretty well dead. So you can just tap them a little and just turn them out. The wax paper stayed in the bottom, so that is good. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that with all 3 of these. You'd think I did this for my day job or something. There we go. And notice how none of them are sinking. They're all well baked. The bottom's not super gooey. So I'm going to let these cool, and then I'm gonna wrap them up really tight and put them in my freezer. I'm probably gonna let them cool for a little bit longer at room temperature, and then I'm gonna put them in the refrigerator to cool the rest of the way. All right, our cake and cupcake. This is the cupcake. Our cupcakes and custard are both cooled now. So I'm going to get started making the jars. And if you don't want to put them in jars, if you're doing like a party or something and want to give everyone something that's a little more disposable, you could get some of these little cups. I will link them below. I've used them in my other cake in a cup video. So I will put that link below. All right, so like I said, our cupcakes, you could easily just top them with the custard and be just fine. But if you know me, you know I have to be a little bit extra. So I am going to cut these down and put them in here. If you wanted to just do like a sheet cake or in like a jelly roll pan, you could do that as well and just cut out the circles with a circle cutter. And so what I'm going to do, and those of you that know me in my personal life know that you're probably cringing right now watching me cut these, because even though I went to pastry school, my knife skills are horrendous, and majority of the time I end up cutting myself. So I should have probably done this in a sheet tray or sheet pan. That way I could just use circle cutters and be just fine. But, you know, it is what it is, and that part just broke off. So we'll be just fine. So I'm going to cut this in half. And because that little part did break off, I'm going to cut this down. What we're going to do, take your little jar, and I'm going to push this down into the jar, down to the bottom. I'm going to put that little piece back in there where it goes. And then we have our custard here. And I have a little scoop that is going to make this process much easier for scooping. If you don't have a scoop, spoons will work just fine. I'm going to take one scoop and just plop it down in there. Use the scoop to level it. And then I'm gonna take the other half and plop it down in there as well. And then we are going to put another scoop on top of that. Level it off. You could add another layer of cake if you wanted to, but that is perfect. And there you have it. Cake in a cup, or cake in a jar. And these actually fit perfectly into these cups, so you wouldn't have to trim any of it down if you didn't want to. And they also have little lids, so they are perfect little to-go pieces. I'm gonna do this other one real quick. Hopefully I won't cut myself on this one either, but you just never know. Wouldn't be the first time I've cut myself trimming cake. And a softer cake would be probably a little bit easier, or if these had sat a little bit so the top wasn't so crunchy. Take a jar, push that down in there. Another scoop of filling. Top piece. Another scoop of the filling. And there you have it. These would be perfect for a party, whether it's a birthday party or just a gathering with friends, game night. These would be super fun. Tie a little spoon around it, and there you go. Perfect little prepackaged dessert for your party. Hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you have any other ideas for desserts in a cup that you want me to do, or any other recipes that you want me to make and share with you. Thanks for watching. Bye. All right, for those of you that stick around to the very end, you're gonna get some bonus Ryan craziness. I've just decided this. So we are going to try this, and you're gonna get to see what happens As soon as I stop recording, I'm eating it. It's so good. Okay, bye for real.